Entering the atmosphere in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Doominal Crossing. What is going on, Doom? How the heck are you?
It's been fantastic. Incredibly busy, but fantastic. I had the day off, and what a time to have the day off, because today, at least for Premium Edition owners, is Doom the Dark Ages Day. So I've been playing a little bit about that, and spoilers, it's pretty kick-ass so far, as you would expect. Having a lot of fun playing that. I also checked out some Dax stream earlier. He was streaming some Mario Kart, and he actually won his final match before he signed off on Baby Park. So shout out to Dax, excuse me. Good job there. And today is also the eve of the final trio of Andor Season 2 episodes dropping, so it's a little bittersweet. Season 2 has been absolutely incredible so far, so I'm excited to see how it all ends, but yeah, it's ending today. Not just Season 2, but Andor as a whole, this is where it's all been leading to, so...
Are they only making two seasons of this?
Yeah, this is it. Season 2, ends with these last 3 episodes dropping today. They've been dropping 3 a week in... within about a 4-week span, so I kind of like that. I like that model even more than like the typical ones where you'll have one a week or you'll have just the whole thing dropping at once. I think it gives you like a lot to chew on, but it also gives you a lot to look forward to at the same time. So you get the best of both worlds there. You get that anticipation, but you also don't feel like, you're being drip fed. So I really like the way that it's been doing, but alas, we've reached the end of the road, but my goodness, what a road it's been. I know you and a lot of other people are like super burnt out in Star Wars for very legitimate reasons. I am too, to an extent, but I seriously cannot recommend this show enough. It is so it's not just good for a Star Wars show. It's just genuinely a phenomenal show. It's in its own right, and I think most people are going to be able to take out something in their viewing experience that is going to be meaningful.
Gui has actually been recommending that show, and him and I are pretty similar in terms of wavelengths for stuff, although there's certainly some stuff that I like that he doesn't and vice versa, but generally speaking, we're pretty aligned, and he was just like, man, I know what you're going to think, I know what you're going to say, but like, you should watch this. And to be honest with you, I probably would, but my Disney Plus, I had free Disney Plus with my internet, and it just ran out like maybe 3 months ago or something like that, so... I was lamenting all the stuff on there. As much as I don't really love Disney, I never got around to watching X-Men 97. Sometimes I just pop in like a few classic, episodes of The Simpsons and stuff like that. And it is a little bit sad that I don't have it, but I maybe one day I'll get back into it. I've got a show recommendation for you. And this is like for anybody. I imagine that maybe a lot of people that are listening to this podcast maybe also like Castlevania, and if so, I'm hoping that you've checked out Castlevania on Netflix, because like those seasons are unbelievable. But there's a show called Blood of Zeus, which is it looks almost exactly like Castlevania, like same kind of animation. And it's kind of got like the same tone as well, except it's kind of it's based in like Greek mythology, and so imagine like Castlevania crossed with Hades. It's really cool, and the final season just came out, so I'm getting ready to get into that tonight. So I'm a little bit excited for that. So as a recommendation for all you guys out there, an underrated
Castlevania meets Hades. Say no more. Take my money.
It's really cool, man. It's like it looks really slick. It looks polished. It's definitely got some, mature themes. It's got, like watching Castlevania, like the Netflix series, there's sometimes where like some of those fight scenes are just like gory and outrageous. And this is the exact same thing. So it's, it's been a good show to watch. So yes, we are back here today, and we figured that we would not wait another 6 to 8 months or whatever it was from the last definitive ranking to the next one like we did last time. So we're bringing it back. We're running it back. And I was a little bit inspired to do this because, number one, we were originally going to return and finally finish off the Metroid manga that is Joey and Samus. And we still are going to do that. I just didn't have time to read it this week. But that is on tap, so we're gonna try and bang that out certainly before Metroid Prime 4. But yeah, so I was kind of looking and I was like, man, we're almost at the end of the road. There's only like 3 games left that we haven't definitively ranked, and I decided, I was like, you know what, I feel like we got to build up to the grand finale, and one of these games I'm like really excited to talk about, and that's the one that we ended up doing today, which is another Metroid 2 remake. So very excited to get into that today and go over and rank the game by its categories, and go through the list, talk about what we like, what could be improved, everything like that. So the definitive ranking is back. We do not have to wait that long for the new episode. So before we get into that, I really quickly wanted to I guess just tease something. I'm not ready to announce it yet, but we're going to have some big new features coming to Patreon here within the next month. There's going to be a new show that's going to be debuting. There's going to be a different version of an existing show. And we have officially got the successor to the Great Metroid Area Ranking planned. Because, I mean, like, we only got, 9 areas left. So that is... that's coming due here pretty quickly. So lots of cool stuff that's going to be coming. I'll have more to announce in the next couple weeks, but honestly, hard to believe that the Great Metroid Area Ranking is 4 episodes out, and then it's finished. Every single area in this series ranked. That's incredible.
I am so excited for the Great Metroid Other M line ranking. It's going to be so much fun.
Can you imagine? Oh my god. Number 1, the baby. Number 2, also the baby. So yes, that is going to be going on over at patreon.com/spnet. So get excited. There's a lot of people that have been asking for this bonus show that we're going to be producing, and I'm excited to finally deliver on it. So yes, that will be coming. Now let's go over and let's definitively rank AM2R Doom. And one thing that I think that I wanted to just state before we even do anything is that I think that the only appropriate thing here for us, if we consider AM2R to be like an official Metroid game, which not everybody does, but I do, because it's so good, I think that we absolutely need to hold it to the same standards that the official Metroid games that we've ranked do. So we are not going to be giving this any leeway because it's a fan game. We're not going to be giving it any leeway at all because of that. This is going to be ranked as if Shigeru Miyamoto himself produced this from his coat pocket, was like, here's a game I just made. So I thought that would be fair if we're going to do this.
100% agree. I mean, first off, for an spoiler, for an unofficial fan game to even be considered as a definitive ranking, that should already tell you how highly we hold this game. But also, yeah, I agree. Like, we by that same token, if you are granted access to this club, we're taking the training wheels off. We're not throwing any punches.
Yeah.
So, although to be fair, I don't expect we're going to be throwing many punches. Let's be real.
Which is honestly crazy because, this is. I mean, as we'll get into, this is one of the best Metroid games. I'm just gonna spoilers, but it is. How good it can be, though, it will be, what we'll figure out here today. But yes, we are certainly not going to be giving it any leeway because it is a fan-made game. I wanted to just put that on notice right here, right now. This also seems like an excellent opportunity for us to plug our exclusive director's commentary with Dr. M64 himself, Milton Guasti. Him and I, we watched the entire AM2R from start to finish. He gave insight onto the very specific, very granular areas, enemies, particle effects, boss decisions, why this person was included, why this boss wasn't included, his philosophy on making the game, fan updates. There was so much that we talked about in our 2 hours. Watching the game that I think it's such an incredible watch if you are a Metroid fan, just to hear Milton's thoughts and how he went about making this game that is kind of in the hallowed halls of like official Metroid game status. So I can't recommend that enough. Go over to YouTube. It's on Omega Metroid's YouTube page. It's also on the original content section of OmegaMetroid.com. It's also under the AM2R banner as well. So that go check that out as a nice companion piece to ranking AM2R here today.
Yeah, I seriously can't recommend it enough. But like you did, first off, you did such a fantastic job interviewing Milton. Like you did a lot of good prep work for that. I know, like the interview alone, you were working hard on, but you were also working your butt off for the marathon at the time too. And I just want to say personally, like you did such a fantastic job with that. And then for all the listeners out there who, haven't gotten a chance to listen to it, if you're like me, I love falling asleep to podcasts, and I think this is an excellent. I think it's a juicy 3-hour interview. This is like a really good one to fall asleep to. Obviously, I would recommend checking out the gameplay too, because a lot of the topics are like synced up with like what's happening on screen. But it's also just a good one to fall asleep to. So I highly recommend that as well if you're looking for some more material to put in your sleeping playlist.
I'm with you. I always have something to fall asleep to. And someone told me once, they're like, I'm sorry, I always fall asleep to listen to the Zelda cast. And I was like, I think that's a compliment. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, so let's get into these categories here. And just for anybody that maybe this is your first episode of the Omega Metroid podcast, if it is, thank you. But the idea behind definitive ranking is that we take the 10 vital ingredients that you put into a pot, you blend them together, you mix it, you let it boil, and then that makes a great Metroid game. And to really quickly run over what these categories are. Some of them are self-explanatory, some of them are not. But we'll start off with the world and the atmosphere. So what's the vibe? What's the setting like? What's the mood? What's the tone of the game? That's kind of an intangible because like you know it when you feel it, but sometimes if it's wrong, it's glaring. We then move on to the art style. What do the graphics look like? What does the design of Samus and the enemies look like? Is it pixelated? Is it gorgeous 3D? Is it something in between? We don't know. What do we think of the story? Self-explanatory there. The pacing and progression. This is, I feel like, the most a misunderstood category here because pacing and progression, I feel like, is so important. It's what keeps you moving in the game. Like if all of us have played a Metroidvania and we've been stuck on either a boss because we're underpowered or we don't know where to go because the game isn't hinting at us, that's pacing and progression. You don't notice it if it's good, but if you have a game without it, you really notice it. So that's the fourth thing. The gameplay and just like what the gimmick of the game is, for lack of a better term. Again, self-explanatory. The items and abilities. How are the power-ups? Are they cool? Are they practical? So that's the next one. The areas. How do each individual area, how does it look? How does it feel? How does it sound? And speaking of sound, the music of the game. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Enemies and bosses. Are they fun? Are they creative? And then the last for Metroid is expansions and power-ups. Again, self-explanatory. Is it fun to go out of your way to 100% this game? So, we're going to be assigning each category here a score. 1 is miserable. That the game does not do a good job at any of this. But a 5, that is your best score that you could possibly get. So, with that being said here, Doom, I think I'm ready. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, heck yeah, dude! It's actually really cool because this is after this we will have all 3 versions of Metroid 2 in the definitive ranking vault. We got OG Metroid 2, we got Samus Returns, and now we got AM2R joining the ranks amongst the greats.
There is only 2 games left for us to do after this. In fact, one of them is Super Metroid, and the other is Metroid Prime Pinball. So, hey, I don't know.
Have we Tunners yet? I can't remember. I don't think we have.
I could have swore we did. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe we didn't. Maybe I need to fact check myself here. But I thought that we did.
And of course, we also got Prime 4, which will obviously be definitively ranked. Well, that'll probably be within like the first month or 2 after the game comes out, kind of like what we did with Dread, I would imagine.
I think so. I think that we definitively rank it and then maybe do it like for the 1-year anniversary, like re-rank it to see if our opinions have changed. Doom is correct, by the way. I have been fact-checked. We have not done Metroid Prime Hunters. So, Yes, we'll see. So we got three games left. Excuse me, plus of course Metroid Prime 4. Do we think that AM2R could perform a little bit better than our last game that we ranked, Metroid Prime Federation Force?
I'm gonna go on a whim and say that the Samus's percentage meter is gonna be very high on this one.
Yes, I feel like maybe we could do a little bit better as well. Well, let's get started here and let's talk about the world and the atmosphere. I think that this game just it just nails the tone of SR388. It feels hostile while also feeling like bright and colorful. That was a critique of Samus Returns that you heard a lot, was that it was like too colorful. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can understand it. This one I feel like is also like, there are some areas where it is like very very vibrant, but there's also some areas that really I feel like nail the tone that Metroid 2 was going for, that close and cramped and just very oppressive vibe that Metroid 2 had. The world itself I also feel looks fantastic. I'm pretty high on this one. I feel like throughout the entirety of the game, like the tone and tenor is very... It's probably the closest to Super Metroid of any game, I think.
Yeah, I'm going 5 on this one. This is easy. Like off the bat. Like I love the world of AM2R, and for me, like I'm gonna try not to like compare to Samus Returns, because I consider these both excellent games in their own right that are attempting to do very different things. But at the same time, when kind of looking at it, I also can't help but compare, like, hey, here's something I think this game did that didn't quite resonate with me the other game, and vice versa, even for Samus Returns, even though for people who know me, I hold AM2R in a much higher regard. But I think one thing that I really enjoy about AM2R that's captured from Metroid 2 is, like you just said, it's very claustrophobic atmosphere that and I don't mind how colorful Samus Returns is. That's not the thing for me. It's that I don't feel as claustrophobic in that world. Everything, no matter where you go, everything is fully active. It's alive, and it doesn't really change from environment to environment. Whereas AM2R, it does have something similar going on to Metroid 2, where it's like, it almost feels like the walls are closing in. For one of the boss battles, the walls are quite literally closing in on you too.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. On top of that, you also have, you do have these bright and colorful environments, but you do also have environments contrasted against that where it's completely dark. You even have environments where it's like, where so much of the environment is literally blacked out because it's so pitch, and you have like this tiny little subtle spotlight on Samus, and it literally feels like you're navigating in this like pitch dark room. And so when you do encounter like signs of life, it almost feels like you're getting ambushed in real time. And a few fights like that, it's quite literally the intention that it's going for, which I really appreciate as well. And you do carry some of those some of that subtle storytelling from Metroid 2 as well, where it's like, you start on the surface, you have a huge variety of creatures that are out there. Some are hostile and directly attacking you. Some are just kind of minding their own, but they'll still attack you if you bug it, you agitate it too much. But then the further you dig down deep into the planet and you encounter these more evolved Metroid forms, you start encountering less and less signs of life as the Metroid further, becomes more prominent as the apex predator. And that isn't something that Samus Returns carried over, which I was a little disappointed in, but you definitely see that in AM2R, which I love. And I think that's a huge contributor to the atmosphere. You also have, and I guess we'll talk about this more with the story as well, but you also flesh out a lot of like the Federation's role in this game. You see,
yes,
I can't remember the name of the ship. It's either the Aegis or the Thoth.
The GFS
thank you. Yeah.
Thoth. I was like to Milton, like, how do you pronounce this? 'Cause, I don't know.
Yeah. But you get a little bit more the background on the troops, and very little of it is in cutscenes. You get one brief cutscene.
Yeah.
The rest of it is just kind of, atmospheric world building. It's background details that just subtly infer what happened. And so that to me is just, I'm all about that. I love it. I'm gonna stop talking now because I've been rambling, but yeah, it's an easy 5 right off the bat.
I love that. I could have kept listening, to be honest with you. You know what? Actually, I want to bring up one thing too, because I was kind of the same. I was like, man, if I get going, I'm not going to stop. But one thing that I really think, and like you could argue that this is part of like the story of the game, but I also think it's part of the atmosphere, because it really kind of sets the tone. And I guess, like, to preface this, like, to me, I mean, spoiler, like, my favorite Metroid game is Super Metroid. Most days, okay? Most days, it's my favorite Metroid game. And so I've always been like, oh, like, I wish that there was a game, as much as, like, we love that it's unique to itself. Like, I wish that there was a game that was, like, almost exactly like it, like more Super Metroid, right? And I think that one of the very, very cool things that this game does is it starts off with that Super Metroid prologue. Like, basically the exact same kind of presentation, like the exact same, like, Samus is narrating, the black and white story. So, like, I feel like, to me, that just kind of set the tone for, like, this is your expectation, which is kind of an ambitious thing to do, to be honest with you, because, like, you're inviting a comparison to one of the greatest games of all time. And I mean, I think AM2R lives up to that and meets it. I mean, no game is Super Metroid, of course, but I really was impressed by that, and for me, it really just kind of set the atmosphere of, like, what to expect from this game. But yes, I mean, like, man, you go into the planet and you get deeper, and it's just such a great balance between, like, creepy and foreboding, and that particularly, like, once you get into Area 8, like, that is just, like, off the charts, like the genetics lab and everything like that, and it's done with absence, very similarly to how the original Metroid 2 was done, where there's no enemies too. So I think that this game, like, really takes, like, the best of the world and atmosphere, like kind of the best of the setting, in terms of, like, how the game makes you feel, from Super Metroid, from Metroid 2, from Zero Mission, and Fusion as well.
I think the perfect analogy that I would look for, or maybe not an analogy, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but, like, I think what makes, the world work so much for me is that SR388 and AM2R feels like a character, and that's what I love so much about the original Game Boy release too. And Samus Returns has some fantastic areas. We've talked about a few of them, like, the Chozo Laboratory, I think, is, like, an all-time Metroid area, I think, despite how short it is. I think it's a really well done area. But yeah, that game, it feels like areas. None of the areas feel like it's its own cohesive character, like it does in the original Metroid 2 and also Samus Returns. I'd also throw in Super Metroid Zeb, or even Nestroid Zebus, I think definitely feels like a character as well. Talon 4, Metroid Prime, I could go on, but yeah, I think, like, that, it's what it literally makes the world, feel like its own. The world feels like it has its own narrative and its own arc, in a sense, and you feel like you're a part of the journey with it. And I think, like, everything that we've talked about is what brings that all together.
That's a great, I don't know, is analogy the right word? But
I don't know if it is, but
whatever the word is, like, I think that, like, is a very apropos, like, way to put it there. Yes, so I'm a 5 as well. So straight up 5s to get us kicked off here. Now, this category kind of bleeds into the art style of the game. I hate to be a homer here, but I like, this game is gorgeous. I'm gonna give it a 5. And not just, like, the pixel work is exceptional, and kind of because, like, like, what the original pixels look like on the Game Boy, on the Game Boy, but seeing them reinterpreted is just, they look so phenomenal. But the way that this game uses the particle effects to really give you that glow when you're in, like, the area, like Area 3, and it's dark, but you can just barely see what's in front of you, or when you have your screw attack or your ice beam, the particle effects around that just look phenomenal. Like the Metroid attacks, like when it's breathing fire at you, I could go on. It looks incredible, and then the areas themselves, as we'll touch upon later, there's so many just, like, exceptional intricate details there. Like, the tower has all this Chozo imagery, obviously the Golden Temple does as well. Everything is just, like, so meticulously done, and, like, you can absolutely see that there is some recycled sprites from Metroid Zero Mission, and I think that that's, like, fine. Because honestly, like you see that in like Metroid Prime 2 or 3, like there's some recycled stuff from Metroid Prime 1. So I think that it just looks absolutely phenomenal. Like right up there with any of the official Metroid games, and to be honest with you, sometimes even exceeding those. The designs of the Metroids, I just think are just like exceptional. Samus looks great. The Various suit, I think, looks great in this game. All the upgrades that you get. And really, like, actually, an underrated thing is how the beams look. Like, the enemy's beams just look like so fantastic. This is an easy 5. Like, this game is gorgeous. It really is.
Going off the beams, I especially love the lighting on the beams as well. Like, they all have dynamic lighting, kind of like you see in like the Prime games themselves, where it'll actually, like, the light will interact with the environments, like, just in ways that was not possible on the SNES or the Game Boy Advance. It looks, especially in like some of those darker environments like we were talking about earlier, it looks incredibly gorgeous. I do want to go back to the reused artwork, and then that is going to play into my I'm going to do a special type of ranking that I've never done before. I'm going to give it a 4 asterisk. And what I mean what I mean when I say that is, at the moment, AM2R, including its fan updates, still has a lot of that reused artwork, a lot of that reused sound design. However, right now, the current development team, the fan-made development team that's in the process of continuing updating the game, they are in the process right now of slowly but surely replacing all of the reused artwork and sound effects with completely original stuff. The ultimate goal is to make this a completely 100% original project outside of the Metroid IP, but like every single bit of art and music, etc. They want it to be completely original, not come out of Nintendo's vault, etc. And they're still in the process of that. They've been working on this for a few years now. I would imagine that it's still going to be a few years down the road. So that's the only reason why I'm going to give it a 4 asterisk for now. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, doesn't really reflect my personal opinion of the game, but I'm also not going to throw punches on this game. For me personally, I don't really care. I think I pretty much agree with everything you said there. I think, the art direction of this game is incredible. Even the cutscene work, it's all sprite based, just like Super Metroid. There's no like CG cutscenes or anything like that. All the sprite work looks gorgeous. There's some beautiful hand-drawn ending art with like Samus and the baby Metroid as well when you complete the game too. Huge fan of that. I think the art absolutely shines. My own personal thing, I give it a 5. That's the vibes that I feel, but I'm gonna be a bit critical and objective here, and also just do a little bit of devil's advocate, just because as we hinted at earlier, this game's pretty amazing. There is not many opportunities to throw punches, so this is my one little opportunity just to be throw a bit of an objective punch. And again, there's an asterisk on that punch. I could withhold that fist within a matter of years. So who knows?
And you bring up a good point, actually, that maybe we should have addressed at the top. So maybe this varies for people to people, but like my version of AM2R is a fairly early one. I want to say like 1.38 or whatever. Like it's the one from a few years ago. So a lot of the additions that have been made since then are not necessarily in my version of the game. So I probably should have mentioned that off the top, but I think that's fair. And the other thing, I guess, like for me as well, is like I'm just such a sucker for like good pixel artwork, like the throwback to that era. It always works for me. So that certainly ups the art style for me as well. I think that's fair though, because there are some points in the game where like, it's like, oh, that's from Chozodia, which I think works in the context of where it is in the game, but I think that's a fair critique.
Yeah, and I think, and I agree with you. Like, again, like from my personal standpoint, I don't care about any of the reused artwork. I think it blends in pretty seamlessly with the original artwork. I think the reused artwork always, not just the artwork, but the sound design too. But like, I think it all fits within, the context of this game. It makes sense. There, nothing ever feels out of place. It's more just me trying to be objective about it. And I would also say, unlike the Prime games, where there are a lot of asset reuse, particularly in Metroid Prime 2. Outside of a couple of enemies, it doesn't usually feel super derivative, where it does kind of feel a little bit derivative in this game, which again, for me personally, I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm just trying to be objective about it.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Well, let's move on. Let's go to the story. I've kind of let us off the last couple ones here, Doom. Do you want to take the reins here? Because I got a score in mind, but I got to hear what you think first.
I mean, again, Metroid isn't really known for its story, and I love the story of Metroid 2, even though it's a pretty simple one. So I don't know how off the rails I can go compared to the other topics, but this is this is another one where I don't know. I could give it a 4 or a 5. I'll wait till I hear you to give like my definitive score. But for now, I'm gonna go easy with a 4. But just say that this is definitely like my personal definitive edition of how Metroid 2 plays out. I won't get into the whole. I won't go into the whole Ridley thing. I'm just gonna hold AM2R on its own account here, but again, you have three kind of key points of the stories. You have the introduction sequence, the kind of allusion to Super Metroid. You have the Federation plot line, which kind of resolves not necessarily in the middle, but I would say like 75% of the way through the game.
When you get to Area 6,
yeah, and then of course you got Samus defeating the Queen, finding the baby Metroid, and that universal changing bond happening in that moment. And yeah, I love how all three of those play out in this game. I don't really, in terms of the story, I don't think this game loses anything that I love about Metroid 2. Actually, the more I talk, as simple as it is, I think I do have to give it a 5. Once again,
I'm glad. Yes.
It's a very simple story. It doesn't have much going for it, but simplicity doesn't have to be a bad thing. And I think this game, much like the original Metroid 2, it utilizes that simplicity to its benefit. It utilizes those limitations perfectly.
Yeah.
And I love it. I'm gonna let you go on. But
I'm glad that you said a 5, because I was like, are people going to roll their eyes and shut this podcast off if I give this another 5? Which I'm going to do. But I'm going to justify it here. And I would give Metroid Samus Returns a 5 in the story as well, I think. But I think that AM2R is just like, the story I feel like is so good for a couple of different reasons. Like, as you said, it's simple, but it's direct. Like, we were talking in Discord maybe like a month or so ago about like the greatest moment in Metroid. And I was thinking to myself, and I was like, I think the greatest moment in the entirety of the Metroid series is when Samus spares the baby Metroid. And that takes place in this game. Like, I think that moment is so great. It's just such a landmark decision that Samus makes. It has like these sprawling consequences for the galaxy, but also shows her humanity. So I think that the way that they did that in this game was exceptional, but they also add in like all the stuff with the Federation. Like they greatly expanded that. And I'm not even talking about before they added in like the trooper logs that you can see in later versions of AM2R, which actually, if I'm being honest, I like those, but they're a little bit too on the nose with the alien references and like some of the Predator references. Like they're very, very direct references, right? But I really liked like having the Thoth there. Like I thought that was such a cool touch. I really liked being able to see like the search and rescue team and actually like see them alive and watch the Omega Metroid like demolish them. That to me was just like, oh wow, like they're so close but so far, like we can't rescue them. And it was a little bit of a sad moment. As I mentioned, the opening sprawl, like the way that the Super Metroid style intro was positioned, I thought was fantastic. And you know what? Another thing too is like one thing I think that really helps that we don't talk about with the story of AM2R is like you get all of the logbook entries and those just come automatically to you, and it really gives you context and world building and the world itself. Even without those, like you look at an area like the distribution center and like it immediately makes sense, like why it's there and what its purpose is. And same with the tower, and same with the Golden Temple. Like you look at these areas, which we'll get into once we get there, but like there's like almost like a mini story and a function behind all of these like individual places that you go and you visit. So I think that the story of Metroid 2 is already a strong story, like to build your foundation on top of. I think that AM2R like adds just enough to make it like take that good foundation but make it even stronger. And then there's some of the naturalistic elements of the world I feel like are like the cherry on top. So I mean it's not, it's not super deep or complex or anything, but what it does extremely well. I feel like it makes you care about the baby Metroid. It makes you care about this Galactic Federation team. It makes you interested in the world that the Chozo left. And I feel like it's just like such a well-designed story. The only thing that I will say is that after playing Samus Returns, it is hard to go back to you defeat the Metroids and then there's just like the earthquake that happens for some reason. Like Samus Returns just nailed it out of the park with like the DNA seals. Like if I were to give it a 4, that would be what I'd bring it back at. But like again, like talking to the developers of this game, okay? The intention was to emulate what was done in the original Metroid 2, and so there was this very specific reason to stick to that. So that I don't even know if we can hold against the developers of this game either. So I know it's another 5 and people are probably rolling their eyes, but I feel it's a well-deserved one.
Well, they're gonna roll their eyes more because I suspect we got some more 5s to come in the very near future.
Yes, we do.
Also, I'm really glad you brought up the logbooks. I completely forgot that was a thing in this game, and that's like one of our most requested features for 2D Metroid. I think is like, man, these game needs a scan visor like the Prime games. Like that would be hugely beneficial. And I think AM2R showed that you can absolutely make this work in the context of a 2D game that's a lot more fast-paced and is a lot more movement-based. It still works, like, flawlessly, I think.
Well, and you know what? Like, it's so easy. Like, yes, scanning stuff is fun in Metroid Prime, but there's also times, like in Metroid Prime Hunters, like, when you're looking, I want to say it's your objects, they just come automatically into your logbook as you see them, and it's so nice. You know what I mean? Like, that you don't have to scan, because it can be a bit tedious in Metroid Prime, scanning, like, the small energy tank, or the small energy, then big energy, then medium energy, then ultra. It's just like, okay, like, whatever. So it is just kind of nice having that automatically come to your logbook. I like, there is no reason why 2D Metroid games don't have this going forward. And probably should have had this from Metroid Prime and on. Granted, there hasn't been a lot of 2D Metroid games from Metroid Prime and on, but nevertheless... yes, that's a 5 for me. What was your official score there, Doom? Did you talk yourself up to a 5, or were we sticking with 4?
I talked myself up to a 5 at the end, and you pretty much affirmed that. So yeah, I'm not changing anything at this point.
All right, pacing and progression. Now, this is this game is different from other Metroid games, and you would say the same about Metroid 2 and Samus Returns as well, where the pacing is pretty intentionally like level based rather than like going and doing a more traditional Metroidvania lock and key experience. So in that sense, like it does kind of seem like the pacing is pretty crisp in this game, I will say. You always know like what you're supposed to do next. Like you always know, like, okay, I have 4 Metroids left, I have 3 Metroids left, I have 2 Metroids left, and now I'm going to the next area. So I think that it works really well in terms of that. I can't say that I'm thinking of any particular times in the game where, you know what I mean? Where you're just like, man, there's that one part of the game which I'm just like really not looking forward to. I think maybe the only thing that might come to mind is the robot part where you have to get the super missiles. But even that is like so short that it's really
love that part. Yeah, I'm not complaining about that. I love that.
And I gotta be honest with you, I do too. Like I love playing as Skippy, the old robot there. But I could see like that is one area where maybe some people are just like, not my favorite. But yeah, like there's really not a lot of areas where you're there and it's just like, oh geez, like it's this part of the game, I'm not looking forward to it. I feel like you are always progressing from like objective to objective, whether it's Metroid to boss to new area to whatever, without really getting stuck anywhere. And the design of this game like helps with that, because like there's certainly times where you could be playing a more traditional 2D Metroidvania and you're just like, all right, I have no idea where to go next. The way that Metroid 2 is structured, you can avoid a lot of that, which I think helps.
Yeah. Did you give her a score yet on that? Because it sounds like you're giving it a 5.
I haven't given my score yet. I'm willing to be influenced by what you're saying.
Okay. Well, I think this is going to be roughly similar to what happened last time, because I'm just going to come right out with the 5.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't.
I mean, look, because when I think of pacing, and I think you put it best, when I think of pacing, there's always that thing in your mind is like, what's the part of the game that I'm not looking forward to? And I feel like even my favorite Metroid games to an extent have a part of that. Metroid Prime, my favorite game of all time, I'm never looking forward to the Meta Ridley fight. I'm just not, which sucks because I love Meta Ridley. I love the arena. I think he looks cool. The theme is like one of my favorite Ridley themes in the series, but the fight itself, it's just kind of a slog. He's a coward. He flies away too often. And again, Prime is my favorite game of all time, but I'm never looking forward to that Meta Ridley fight. It's the one part of the game that it's my ick. I really cannot think of a single moment in AM2R where it's like, oh, this thing, it's like you start off with the Golden Temple. That's awesome. You go to the Hydro Station. That's even more awesome. Then you go to the mines, and the mines like always like the mines is like a very subtle buildup for me. And I remember playing for the first time, and well, you know what? I'll save this for the music. I'll save this. No, I'm gonna say it right now, actually, because I'm gonna forget if I wait all the way till the music.
Okay.
But the first time I played through the mines, all of the reused music at this point was from 2D games, or they originated in 2D games at least. And then you enter the mines, and it starts playing a piece of music that I didn't quite recognize at first, and then I realized, wait a minute, that's the light the light energy theme from Metroid Prime 2. What the heck is that doing here? And then as I came to that realization, that like blew me away, because at this point, fan game or otherwise, I can only think of one instance really of a Metroid Prime track appearing in a 2D game, being the very specifically the Hall of Elders theme, which appears as the Chozo map theme, as well as that cutscene before the Chozo test. That's like the one exception I can think of. And in this game, this is like a full mainline track just present as an area theme, and that just kind of blew me away. And that's kind of my feelings throughout the whole game. It's like this really nice roller coaster, but the roller coaster never has a lull in it. Even when you're going up the hill and it's a little bit calmer, like there's always an anticipation, if not a climax. And yeah, there's really at no point in the game that it lulls for me, so I have to give it a 5 for that alone.
I mean, I think so too, and I was kind of thinking to myself, like, what's an area? I mean, as you said earlier, like, Samus Returns and AM2R are very different games, but I think it is natural to compare the two, especially for something like this, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, like, an area that just really is a tough one to get through in Samus Returns is Area 3, with all of the Gamma Metroids that run away from you, and you have to chase them down, and I'm even looking at the map in AM2R, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of Metroids in the industrial complex, but like there's really not as many, and they don't run away. And by that point in the game, like, and this is another big thing which helps the pacing and progression of AM2R, is like you get the space attack or the space jump, almost like right away, like pretty quickly into the game, and so like you can really up your movement by that point. And for that matter as well, like you get the speed boost pretty quickly in the game as well. So like you can really be kind of rocking here pretty fast all over the place. So I do think that it helps with the pacing and progression as well. Yeah, I mean it's a 5, right? I think it's a 5. So there. Okay. So I've given a possible 20 out of 20 points here, and Doob isn't far behind. He's at 19. So let's see if we can keep this going.
19 asterisks, don't forget. This can change.
Yes, that is true. These definitive rankings are always subject to change. Let's get over to the gameplay. I'm going to break my perfect score here, Doom. I'm gonna give it a 4, and this is why. And again, this is almost like a 4 with an asterisk, but I do feel like I got to give it a 4, because the gameplay is incredibly solid. Like the game feels so good, it feels just immaculate to play. My only critique is that for a lot of the gameplay, like the game engine is basically ripped right from Super Metroid and Metroid Zero Mission. Like the physics are somewhere in between the two. It feels very familiar, which is both good and bad. Good because obviously like this is a new interpretation of this game, and that's kind of what you want is familiarity in terms of your gameplay, because there's so many other big changes. But I will say it is a little bit I can't even say disappointing, but there was opportunity, I feel like, to make the Metroid fights a little bit more engaging in terms of combat. And you know, just based on the amount of Metroids that you do fight in the game, it can get a little bit old just doing your missiles, you know, over and over and over again. Now, granted, this game does really good jobs of like putting those Metroids in different scenarios where like there's a couple, like there's times where you fight 2 Gamma Metroids or like 5 Alpha Metroids or whatever, right? But I think like that's kind of my big critique of the gameplay, if you want to call giving a 4 out of 5 a critique. The other thing too is like there's not necessarily like, I think it would have been cool to have like one thing in the gameplay that's like very uniquely AM2R. Like for example, in Metroid Zero Mission, you get the Zero Mission or the Zero Suit portion, which is very uniquely that style of game. And in Metroid Fusion, the X-Parasites influence how you interact with enemies in the world. That's very unique to that game. This game doesn't really have that. It takes all of the best elements of Zero Mission, Fusion, Super Metroid, and blends them together in a really satisfying way. But I don't think that there's anything that's like very uniquely AM2R, except for maybe, old Skippy. But as we said, you don't get to play as him too much. I do appreciate in this game how like you can like you do have those segments though that break up like the gameplay a little bit with like Skippy, or there's the one section where you're controlling the mine shaft, which is really cool, or like the mine drill or whatever it is. I think that's pretty cool. So I really don't have anything to complain about, and I probably could have made the case for a 5, but I do want to be a little bit fair and say like there was an opportunity for innovation that maybe we didn't quite get there.
Yeah, I'm actually in complete agreement with you. Specifically for the Metroids, I'm also giving it a 4 as well. This is actually one of the areas where I think Samus Returns kind of blows both original Metroid 2 and AM2R out of the water. I think the Metroid fights, with exception to the Queen Metroid and a couple of the Omega fights, I think Samus Returns just has those Metroid fights on lock. Mm. And definitely, especially revisiting AM2R afterwards, I definitely was a little bit more critical of some of those Metroid fights. I do like some of those more ambushy fights. Like I love the section where like 4 gammas 4 of the alphas come out of nowhere and just ambush you. Like that's awesome. I love stuff like that. But for the most part, it definitely feels a little, I wouldn't even say unfair, but just a little clunky, which makes sense in Metroid 2 with, some of, those early physics and kind of the limitations of the aiming. Mm-hmm. But it still feels clunky even with like the more modern physics and the more, the diagonal aiming options and stuff like that. And so I just think that style of fight for the most part just didn't quite age as well. And again, there are some exceptions. I think we'll talk about later in the bosses. I think the Queen Metroid is a substantial exception to that rule. Yeah. But But yeah, I think the fights, they're fine for what they are. Definitely very faithful to the original. But especially, and I think if the Metroids weren't so prevalent, if they were like, you know, a mini boss in that game, I wouldn't be too hard. But because that is like a pretty core gameplay mechanic, I think you do have to factor that into the score. And so I pretty much agree with you 100% there.
Like faithful to a fault, because I asked Milton about this, and I was like, did you consider, you know, making these Metroid fights a little bit more intricate? And he was like, nope, our goal was to emulate Metroid 2, and I think that again, like, faithful to a fault, right? And if that's the mission, if that's the goal, I can respect that and appreciate it. And it's not like those Metroid fights are bad, but yeah, you do.
Yeah.
It is a lot of the same stuff, and it's certainly nowhere near the intensity of the Metroid fights in Samus Returns. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you especially feel again with the alphas and gammas just because of how much you fight. I think from the zetas and onward, it's not too bad just because they are a bit more spread out. But yeah, for a majority of the game, you're going to be fighting a lot of alphas and gammas, and those gammas especially are great at making me want to throw my controller.
I would even, like, for me personally, I would even say the Omega Metroid fights were a little, like, yeah, you know, like, they're fine, but it is just kind of like jump up, shoot your missile, jump up, shoot your missile, jump up, shoot your missile, which is very different from the hulking behemoth fight that we see in Samus Returns. So I agree with you. I would give Samus Returns the edge there for sure. And yeah, I guess the other thing too is, like, faithful to a fault, but this spider ball is not my favorite Metroid item.
Yeah.
And the game, you know, the game will give you the spider ball areas as well. So that's also a factor. But
I mean, Samus Returns does too as well. So.
It does, yeah, and probably to a worse, more offensive extent actually. But it's still, if I'm calling it out for Samus Returns, I'll have to call it out here as well.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's go over to items and abilities, and maybe Doom, you take the lead on this one. Got a lot of different items in this game. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I think this is another one. So I'm actually for sure not going to give this a 5 because there isn't really a lot or anything, frankly, that's new in this game. Even Samus Returns, you know, you got 4 brand new Aeon abilities to play with, but you don't get any new tools to play with in AM2R. Everything available in this game has been in a previous Metroid game. You might get a couple of new contexts for those abilities. I think the Ice Beam in particular, I love how physics-based it is in this game, which you also saw in Metroid Other M, but you didn't really get a lot of opportunities to use it. I think AM2R, you know, utilizes, you know, how physics-based the Ice Beam is a lot more within the gameplay. And I love, again, some of the particle effects, you know, especially with the machinery, how they'll explode and you'll see, like, the particles get all everywhere. Like, that looks awesome. I love that. But, yeah, otherwise, you know, even the speed booster, like, you know, all of the limitations you had in Zero Mission, those are the exact same limitations you have in AM2R. And so again, like I think all the items you do get, I mean, I think they perform well. They're great. They're still fun to use. Some of them have some minor quality of life updates, and you know the Ice Beam in particular has some new gameplay function with how physics based it is. But yeah, the items themselves, you don't really do a lot new with them. And I think going back to what you said about the Spider Ball, I think upgrades like the Spider Ball could have especially used some quality of life improvements to make them, you know, more fun items. And I think maybe the more I'm talking about this, I think maybe if stuff like the Spider Ball did become, like, you know, a more tolerable item to use, I could probably bump that up to a 4. I think I'm going to give a 3 to the items though, you know, which again, for what this game is, I really enjoy all of the items, but I think being objective about it, I think I have to give it a 3 because it doesn't offer a whole lot new in that department that we haven't experienced in any other games.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Yep. I'm pretty much right in line with you there. I was going to give it a 3 as well. I was thinking about a 4 because I do think that the Ice Beam is like a really, really cool version of the Ice Beam to the point where it almost feels like a new item. But I mean, it's not. It's the Ice Beam, right? It just feels exceptionally more powerful. I do think that putting in a new power up would have been really cool, and you're right, like everything that's there is great, but yeah, it's kind of like your greatest hits of 2D Metroid items, and I guess like in fairness, like I'd probably give the items in a game like Zero Mission a 3 as well, because there's also not a ton that's new or fresh there. And to your point about the spider ball too, like to me, like I always thought Samus Returns tries to make like some pretty good use out of the spider ball. Like it'll like the same kind of limitations are there, but at least it involves it in like boss fights. It involves it in some puzzles.
Yes.
I think that, and I appreciate this about AM2R, but I think that by the game giving you the space jump like so early, it's kind of an admission, just like, yeah, like let's get you to something else, so you don't have to use the spider ball here like a ton.
And going back to actually the Samus Returns spider ball a bit, I actually think when it is utilized in bosses, especially with like Diggernaut, I think that's awesome. Like I love the way it utilizes spider ball in those boss fights with like Diggernaut and the Queen Metroid and stuff like that. The main gameplay hook, obviously, pretty much the same from OG Metroid. Not a lot there, but like where it does deviate with that spider ball, I think like it really works. AM2R doesn't really doing that. You're doing the exact same things with the spider ball you did in Game Boy Metroid 2, which that's not the way I like to enjoy the spider ball. I like to enjoy the spider ball like in Metroid Prime. That is hashtag my spider ball.
There you go. So I think a 3 is appropriate. Like it's very middle of the road, and like again, like obviously the intention here is to create a game that feels very much like Zero Mission or Super Metroid, but in a different setting. But I think if you do that as well, you have to accept the what's the word I'm looking for? Not limitations, but the consequences.
The baggage.
That sounds so dire. Yeah, the baggage that comes with that. Accept your consequences. Well, let's move on here. Let's go to the areas of this game, and this is not the easiest 5 that I'll give, but it's a pretty easy 5. I have to say, going back to getting back on a high point here, the areas for this game are just exceptional, like so unbelievably detailed, personable. I think that you stack up the amount of areas in this game, and like they're all small areas. But like I think that you can stack up these areas versus the areas from any Metroid game, and they like you could have a serious discussion that like, yeah, you stack this up against Metroid Prime's areas, you stack it up against Super Metroid, and you could still make the argument that like maybe AM2R has the best collection of areas, like from start to finish. I feel like they are fantastic. Like you go from the surface, the amount of detail, the amount of just like positivity almost that comes from there, and then you go down, you get a little bit mysterious going to the Golden Temple. The ambiance there is just unlike anything else. Like I feel like that area, for being so small, is so unbelievably good. The Hydro Station is just this incredible, almost like beat for beat remake of Metroid 2. That's probably like the most remakey area in the game. And I think you keep going. Like Industrial Complex is incredibly solid. Distribution Center is like just this absolutely incredible original area that is just designed for this game that wasn't in Metroid 2 at all. Even the tunnels, like the mining facility you point out, it looks spectacular. They feel spectacular. It's claustrophobic. Here you're really getting the sense of like, oh, we're getting deeper and deeper into the planet. You go to the tower, and this is one of the absolute great Metroid areas. Like this area is like, my God, this is just an absolutely incredible area. I will say, so the nest, it maybe dips a little bit in terms of areas there. It's just it's kind of the tunnels, but even like you listen to that foreboding track and there's no enemies, you're just like, oh, this is kind of intense. Like we got some some Omega Metroids here, and man, the genetics lab is just like, what a final sequence there. That to me was just like, wow, this is Metroid 2 realized in its ultimate form, the way it should have been, you know. I think that the Area 8 in the Metroid Samus Returns, I think is very disappointing. Like, full of enemies, there's no ambiance, there's no tension. And I feel like the complete opposite for the genetics lab in AM2R. Like, these areas, I honestly think, I think you could take these areas and stack them up, put them against Metroid Prime, put them against Echoes, put them against Super Metroid. I think you can have a legitimate discussion. These areas are better than all of those.
I don't know if I'm willing to go this far. I genuinely think... I definitely think there's a conversation for AM2R having the single best collection of areas throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
Because there are literally no misses in this entire pack. Like, it is, like, from start to finish. Like obviously, like, you know, is it going to be are any of these areas going to be in my top 5? Probably not. Like, Sanctuary is my number 1. Vendrana's somewhere in my top 5. There's a lot of heavy hitters, you know.
Yeah.
Skytown, Valhalla are like huge on my list. Wreck Ship, but yeah, almost every single one of these areas is like a 5 out of 5 for me, and even the ones that aren't 5 out of 5s are like just barely underneath there, and mostly just because they're more transitional areas, which. Obviously, yeah, they're transitional areas. You know, they shouldn't overstay their welcome. I think I think it plays back into the pacing. You know, this game feels so perfectly paced, and I feel like the areas, you know, from a level design standpoint, perfectly complement that in how they're designed. And, man, you go... I want to talk about the tower again, because, like, the tower...
Let's do it.
In particular. Oh, my gosh. Like, you first enter that, and you have this incredible... Kind of going back to the art direction again, you have this I don't know why we didn't mention this before. This incredible pixel art piece of like the 2 Chozo holding up the globe that just like oversees like the actual tower itself. Like I would argue
that was great.
I would argue that's like maybe one of the most, you know, iconic pieces of art in like that whole game. It's just absolutely breathtaking. That piece of art. And then I love how, you know, you get hints of like that Lower Norfair theme, and like you think you understand where it's building up to, then you finally turn on the power, and then, you know, it just you finally do get that Lower Norfair theme, completely different context than anything that you've heard before, but it works so well.
It's like Sanctuary Fortress and Lower Norfair had a baby.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And I'm also going to talk about this because we don't really have another section, I don't think, where it applies, but you get, in my opinion, the single best escape sequence in the entire series, and nothing even really comes close once you get the power bombs in the area. And I love how it recontextualizes and flips the traditional escape sequence on its head. You don't really get mid-game escape sequence, first of all, but I think what really works to this game's benefit is that you don't have a timer like a typical escape sequence, and it allows it to do something completely different. And I think Milton also talked about this when you were interviewing him, but it's rather than a timer, you have a little bar that goes up in the corner, but once you reach a certain threshold, it'll actually automatically go up so that it automatically the bar will automatically always hit the end once you reach the specific checkpoint that you need to reach, and it allows the explosion to literally hit you at the last possible second. I remember the first time it happened, like I thought I failed. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so bad at this game. I failed an escape sequence. Oh, this is awful. And then but the game over sequence doesn't play, and the smoke clears. And then there's Samus just lying there with 1 energy unit left, just barely getting up. And oh man, that absolutely blew my mind. That is not only had I never seen that before, that is something that a Metroid game to this date still has never done before with an escape sequence. And like that moment will always stick. For like when I think of like impactful Metroid moments that resonated with me, that, you know, waking up after that escape sequence, that's like an all-timer moment for me. Yeah. And that again, that plays into the areas. I've been rambling a lot. This is a 5, in case I wasn't clear on that before. This is an easy 5.
like really easy 5.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention the Thoth either, which is just like another
right. Yeah.
incredible atmospheric, like story world building area. Like, yeah, like I think that you could probably say like the weakest, like quote unquote, the weakest area here is the nest, and even then it's like, well, damn, I get to fight 3 Omega Metroids, and like there's this really sinister music playing, so like it's the weakest area is still really cool. So yeah, I'm with you. Like I think I mean, you're right. As individual areas, because they're so short, like is any of them going to be number one? Probably not. But like when you take like the tower plus the Golden Temple plus the Thoth plus, I really think that like you can stack that against any game, and you could have a discussion that this is the best. And this is the point where I'm just like, man, if you have not played AM2R, you got to go play it, because you're missing out, and it's not hard to find either. So if you haven't, like, do yourself a favor and do this right
especially
away.
especially if you are a Metroid fan that's starving for content. And I know some of you are out there. Some of you've played every single Metroid game before. You're dying to play Prime 4. Every day you wake up, that's all that's on your mind. I'm telling you, dog, you can play a Metroid game right now that you have not played before. I know it's not
my dog
official,
for once.
but like, yeah. Oh, you can hear him through my mic. Yeah, that's
hey, buddy.
You can't see him on screen, but that's Howdy. That's our roommate's dog.
Aww.
I'm assuming someone just arrived at the house. That is why he is very excited right now.
I think Howdy's just like, these areas, I think they're a 5 too. Like He's like give it a 5 for me.
He's like, I swear if these guys don't give it a 5, I'm running away.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and poop in your you know what, it's completely unrelated, but we are approaching the 10-year anniversary here, Doom. I came home from work one day and I saw my moccasins and my cat shit in them, like right in my moccasins, like.
We're timestamping that.
Yes. So there's a fun story for everybody. Sorry about the not safe for work language there, but I felt like to sell the impact, I needed to let you know what happened. Yes, easy 5s for the areas there. Very easy 5s. Let's move on to the enemies and bosses. I gotta say, I think that this is another pretty easy 5 if I'm going to be honest. We did have some critiques about the Metroid fights, but the designs of the Metroids I feel like are exceptional, and frankly, like most Metroid fights are like very quick to the point where like even if they're not the most like creative, let's just say, I think that you still have a really fun time with them. The Queen Metroid fight, I think, is just like bonkers. Like the sprite looks incredible, the atmosphere, the music is incredible. That fight is like right up there. I think it, and you know what? I really like the Samus Returns Queen Metroid fight as well. You know what? I even like the Metroid Other M Queen Metroid fight. But I think that this one might be the strongest of the bunch, actually. It's just like a really, really well done fight. And then you add in like all of the extras that you get on top of that. And like the game is almost cheating here because it brings back like, I mean, yes, you've got your Arachnus, and it's always good to see Arachnus. But by the way, this is like also like, I would say definitively the best Arachnus fight in the series, which isn't saying a whole lot. It's typically the first boss you fight, but I think that the way that this game does that fight is really great. But then you bring back Chorizo, and the Chorizo fight is really fun, but then it's just like, man, this levels up into the next stratosphere in the second phase when Chorizo gets wings. They fly now, baby. So he's going around, and that fight is incredible. Ceres comes back. Incredible boss fight, and then you've got the originals that are there as well. You've got the Ancient Guardian, literally walls closing in on you, and like kind of cool, very Metroid Prime style, like color coded like beam sequences there as you're fighting that. It's very Indiana Jones style boss fight. You've got the Tester, which is just this like bullet hell kind of boss that you might see in like Ikaruga or something like that, and that. There's something so satisfying about that boss with like the crunch of your beams just slicing through it, which I love. and the tank as you are making your way out of that escape sequence that we mentioned as well is just like another just awesome mini boss fight. And you even have like the creepy little optional mini boss as well if you fight Genesis. So yeah, this is it's a 5. It's an easy 5.
I think I'm gonna go with a 4 on this one, just because of those base Metroid fights, which I don't. You could kind of go either way on whether or not you want to include those as like an enemy or even a mini boss, but I think if we're including like the Queens and the Omegas and the Zetas as mini bosses, I feel like I have to at least include the Gammas and the Alphas as well. And so for me at least, that does drop the score down a little bit for me. But my God, we got to talk about the two MVPs, the Chorizo and the Queen. So again, much like I was talking about with my other Metroid Prime 2 music story, I remember when I first did the Chorizo fight, and it's like, oh, Chorizo's back, cool. Why are they playing the Chica theme from Prime 2? That's a weird choice. I guess they didn't want to, maybe they didn't want to use the Ridley theme again, now that that's definitively his theme now. Okay. And then you get to phase 2, and it plays the winged Chica theme, and it's like, oh, I get it now. Oh, that's awesome. And it's right after you get the space jump too, so it's like, two flying beings just like constantly going at it. Just an absolutely killer fight. And then I think the AM2R Queen fight is in my top 3 boss fights of all time. Not Metroid boss fights, top 3 boss fights of all time. I adore the AM2R Queen theme. I love my single favorite thing about Metroid Fusion, I've talked about this before, is how dynamic the areas are. You can visit an area one time and then revisit it again, and the context, the map layout has completely changed. Of course, you have that, my favorite point in the game where the power is cut while you're midway on the elevator, and you literally have to carve your way through the rest of the station. And that all kind of happens in this boss fight where, it starts off as, very faithful to the original Metroid 2 fight. And then all of a sudden, that Queen starts charging her laser and destroys the wall behind you and just starts charging at you. And again, it does something new to the fight, but it's also in the spirit of Metroid 2, because as as she destroys more walls behind you, the fight gets even more and more claustrophobic. There's even less distance until like the very last room where you are inches away from her face, and she's also attacking you much faster. It's such an intense fight. The gameplay hook is satisfying, and once you do have the opportunity to powerbomb her, I do especially love the cutscene at the very end where she's about to chomp Samus, and she just punches her fist up and just stops her from doing that. Just peak Samus badassery too right there. My goodness, this Queen Metroid fight is just an all-timer for me. I remember beating this for the first time, and I just kind of sat there with my jaw agape, and I just had to like take a few breaths to myself, like, holy crap. What did I just experience?
Hold on. What are we talking about here? You give this a 4, man. I gotta say, this should be a 5, I think. This is like just so, and the enemies, like, oh my goodness. Just for those Metro, again, we're talking about the collection here, and I am including the alphas and the gammas in this collection. But again, my God, what
like,
a good fight.
There are. Oh, it's an incredible fight, and that Chorizo fight is incredible. The tester is incredible, and even the opener boss, like you mentioned, the Indiana. Funny you use that. I know you're not a big Indiana Jones guy, but I agree that is a very like Indiana Jones type boss. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say too. One thing that has appeared in later versions of AM2R is that there's even more like original enemies reinterpreted. Like one of my favorite enemies from Metroid 2 is the Blob Thrower. That is literally its name in the instruction book, and that wasn't in the original version of AM2R, but it is in some of the later versions. This thing is like so awesome. And for that, like, I also I do give some some credit to the enemies as well, not just the bosses, because I think that a lot of them they look great. They are modern versions of what we saw in Metroid 2. Like almost every enemy is recreated like very, very faithfully. I'm man, this is just a great collection of bosses and enemies, I think. Okay, let's go over to expansions and power-ups here. This one, I'm actually not sure what my score is, so I want to talk it through and maybe get your opinion as well, because I do think, like, there's definitely some really fun expansions to get, and each area has at least one of those, like, Chozo, like statues where you need to get the orb into it, and that's kind of a puzzle into itself, and those could be very fun. And the Golden Temple has an expansion in particular, which is just, like, diabolical. Which is cool. I will say it's kind of more like Super Metroid in the sense that, like, I think the expansions in Super Metroid are fantastic, but the ones in Super Metroid are more the style where it's just like you have to know where to look to get them in order to, like, quickly accumulate them as you go on your journey, versus something like maybe like a Metroid Zero mission where it's like you can see them, but you have to perform this, like, really crazy move in order to get them. I think AM2R kind of falls more towards Super Metroid in that category there. There are definitely some expansions, like some Shine Spark puzzles, where you do go through and you have to pull off some crazy stuff to get them, of course, but for the most part, I think that the expansions are all fun. Like, I'm not going to give it a low score. I'm kind of thinking maybe 4 is appropriate here. But I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are.
I think I'm gonna go with a 4 as well. It could change in the future, though. I'm gonna give another 4 asterisk. And the reason why is because, unlike a lot of other 2D Metroids, I haven't fully optimized the 100% route. Yeah, this is actually one of the few Metroid games I have not 100%ed yet. Believe it or not, I have not 100%ed AM2R yet. So I need to do that before I can fully form my opinion on that first. Is really optimize that 100% route and see how I feel about it then. Mm-hmm. But also, the last time I played AM2R, the fast travel system had not been implemented yet. That's one of the new updates. Yeah, that's one of the new updates. I guess technically it's not new anymore. It's been a few years now, because this game's almost approaching its 10-year anniversary next year. But yeah, one of the post-release updates that came with this game was some new fast travel points that led from, like, the final area to some of the other areas to kind of help you with that final sweep at the end. Yeah. Back when I played it, those were not present in the game, so the 100% was a little bit more difficult to pull off, a little bit more time consuming, and so I didn't really go for it at that time. Next time I replay that game, I'm certainly going to try going for that, but because that's my only impression of the game, even though it's really not reflective of its current state, that's kind of what I have to go off of. But yeah, the puzzles themselves are pretty fun. There isn't really a puzzle that I, like, absolutely dread by any means, I think. But at the same time, I would also say there isn't, like, a big puzzle that stands out to me either. You know, that's not like, when I think of Metroid Prime, again, when I think of Metroid Prime, immediately I'm thinking of, like, the geothermal core puzzle. Like, that's like a highlight of the game for me, When I think of Echoes, I can think of, like, a myriad of spider ball puzzles. Obviously, Zero Mission, Dread, you got a bunch of different Shine Spark puzzles. You even got that, as simple as it is, that wave beam door when you're doing that final 100% sweep in Cataris. As simple as that is, that's one that, like, is forever ingrained into my memory, just because of, like, how 4D chess I felt solving that at the time. Mm-hmm. AM2R, like, it has a lot of good puzzles, but not a lot. Like, when I think of, like, the standout moments of AM2R, like, again, I'm thinking of, like, music cues, boss fights, story moments, art direction, pieces like the Chozo statues in the tower. I'm never really thinking of the puzzles themselves, and so I think, but again, because I don't really hate them, I don't think they're weak by any means. I can't go as low as a 3. So I think 4 feels right for the puzzles and the expansions.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I think that the expansions that are there are really solid, really fun, but there isn't, like, that signature, like expansion. There probably is actually. Like the one in the Golden Temple is nuts, but it's so nuts that like almost like unless you're awesome at that, like unless you're just an unbelievable Metroid player, there's almost no way that you're going to do that in one shot. And to be fair, the game allows you to do it in multiple segments. Like if you break your Shine Spark, you can back up and not have to start from the very beginning, which I think is cool. But yes, it doesn't have that one where it's like, oh my goodness, was that ever like really cool? So I think a 4 is appropriate. Last category, the music. So when we were talking about the areas, I said that it wasn't the easiest 5 that I would give, but it was really easy. This, man, the music for this is like so unbelievable. I would give it a 6, if I'm being honest. Like, this is such an easy 5.
This is the easiest music 5 I've given since Metroid Prime, like hands down. It's just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, obviously. Like what else? Like what else was gonna happen here? You know?
I listen to this OST just like sometimes at work. Like I put it on the background. I think it's like, I think it's up there with Super Metroid and Metroid Prime with the absolute best in the Metroid series. Like, the surface theme is so vibrant and so like just what an introduction to the game. The Golden Temple theme is just, it's one of my favorite Metroid tracks. Like it might be in my like top 3 favorite Metroid tracks. And that's not even like you get to the Hydro Station, and I think that everyone kind of, that's the one that I think everybody realizes right away, because 1, it sounds so Metroid Prime-y, and 2, it's obviously a remake of a great Metroid track that we haven't heard in a long time. But as you get deeper, you start to hear, like we talked about the tower theme, which is just like this amazing like synthy high-tech version of the Ridley theme. You've talked a lot about of
Lower Norfair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, of Lower Norfair. Yes, you've talked a lot about the theme from the distribution center, which is an original composition. Ancient Power just sounds like so. Like you could have told me that Kenji Yamamoto made this song, and I'd be like, yep, yeah, okay, I believe it. And you go down the list, like the Genetics Lab was just like the ultimate realization again of Metroid 2. The Queen Metroid fight I thought was amazing. That brooding, dark, like kind of pounding drum beat in the nest, like the do do do. That's awesome. The last Metroid, like there's not a theme in this game that doesn't just knock it out of the park. Like it's just an absolutely unbelievable soundtrack, and probably one of the reasons why. We talked about the world and atmosphere succeeding so much. That's a big part of that. Not the entire part, because music is its own separate thing, of course, but it really helps. Like when you've got those two things working together to create a really unforgettable experience. And the music is a big part of how this game was able to be like, to set itself apart from all of the other the Metroid ROM hacks out there. And I've played a bunch, and I always appreciate when a game does original music rather than reusing, some of the tracks from other Metroid games. And you know what? Oftentimes, like when a game does original music, you could tell that it's original music, and I don't mean that as a slight. But you could tell it's like fan-made music. And this one, I don't think you can. Like I think that you could have just, if I told someone new to Metroid, they're like, yeah, this is from Metroid 6. This is the Metroid 6 soundtrack. They'd have been like, oh, okay. Sounds great. Probably one of the best soundtracks I've heard. So this is such an easy 5. I could keep going, but I won't. I'll turn it over to you here, Doom. Remarkable soundtrack. Hats off to everybody that made it.
Yeah, this is from the canceled Metroid 2 remake on DS before Samus Returns, obviously. But yeah, I feel like the music in this game really brings home like my full thoughts on AM2R as a whole game, and that it is very faithful a lot to original Metroid 2, but at the same time it takes all those familiar beats and it is able to recontextualize enough of it to where it does feel at the end of the day like its own unique personal experience. And I feel like the music just really exemplifies that, because I'm usually not a fan of when game music in particular is extremely derivative. Like I generally, like, for the most part, like 25, 30%, for most games. There are some exceptions, but I usually like it when at most 25 to 30% is like stuff you recognize from a previous game, but otherwise it's like, hey, we're doing something new. These are all original melodies that you've never even dreamt of before. That's generally my preference going in. AM2R is not that. It's very much the opposite in that regard. Mm-hmm. And in spite of that, I think Milton, Darren, Torbjorn, all of them who worked on the soundtrack, they did such, a phenomenal job of, again, taking those familiar motifs and melodies, and again, just being able to recontextualize those. And it can be very hard because, I talked about earlier how, SR388 feels like a character, mm-hmm. and it can be incredibly difficult to make it feel like its own unique character when you have music that you would associate from other games that were their own characters. And yet, because of like how they're composed, how these melodies are recontextualized, they are able to stand out. When I hear Hydro Station, for a split second, I'm thinking, Green Brinstar, but then immediately, like once it sets in, it's like, no, this is Hydro Station. This is not Green Brinstar. And again, it's like that with the whole music. And then you do have those little bits. When you do get those little bits of original themes, like the distribution center, I feel like it makes it that much more impactful, that it doesn't feel out of place. Like it feels welcome and at home. Like in it, and because so much of those other melodies are recognizable, when you do hear a wholly original melody, it almost does feel like it was there the whole time. Like this is a part of the Metroid musical family. That's the way I feel. And then just to go a little bit into, some of the more theorem aspects of it, with Distribution Center in particular, I absolutely love the use of pentatonics just dominant in the melody. You don't really hear that a lot in Metroid music, and so it's a unique choice, not just because it's an original theme. It's just a unique stylistic choice you don't usually hear in Metroid. That's like something I would more associate with Zelda. But again, like in the context of this game, I think it works so well, and it's such a beautiful melody. And yeah, that pretty much just echoes my whole thoughts on the soundtrack. It's a masterpiece.
I think the soundtrack, you can kind of like extrapolate like my thoughts on AM2R in general. I think that if you were talking to someone that knew nothing about Metroid, and you were like, okay, here's Metroid 1, here's Super Metroid, and you showed him AM2R and was like, yeah, Nintendo made this game for the Super Nintendo in 1993, they'd be like, wow, what a great game. Like I completely believe it. Like it sounds just so not only of the quality, but higher than a lot of the quality of regular games, like official Metroid games. Like you have no problem buying in and being like, oh yeah, like this is one of Nintendo's greatest works, and of course it wasn't Nintendo that made it. So yeah, I think that is I just like, it's such that's a good word. It's just like such a masterful soundtrack that succeeds on so many levels, and frankly, you could say that about AM2R as a whole. I don't think that there's going to be another fan game that we could definitively rank. Maybe you could have a conversation about Metroid Rogue Dawn. That's a pretty exceptional ROM hack as well. But I think for me, like this game is just, it's just on another level from any other fan game I've ever played in my life, Metroid or not. And I've played a bunch. So, the final tally here, Doom, adding everything up, we've got a grand total out of 5 for Doom Animal Crossing, a 4.4 out of 5. Asterisk, yes, which could go up to a 4.6 out of 5, which coincidentally is what I have ranked this game as, 4.6 out of 5. If there are any Omega Metroid like super fans out there, if you're into the lore of the series, I would love to know if I have ranked anything higher than 4.6 out of 5. Maybe Metroid Prime? I don't know. I don't know.
I think my Echoes ranking was a lot higher than I was initially expecting. I'd have to go back and see where it actually finalized. But I was actually like shocked looking how high I ranked that game. So I don't know. I feel like this is higher than Metroid Prime. I still think Metroid Prime is my favorite game of all time. But I think like of a collection of scores, I'm pretty sure that this ultimately ranked higher.
It could be. It definitely could be. And not to say though, like, because it ranks higher, our collection of scores means it's a better game necessarily, but just in this format, yeah, I guess that does mean it's kind of good. So there you go. Okay, any final thoughts here on AM2R before we rock on out of here? We're going a bit long, as we usually do with definitive ranking.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before. I'll probably echo what you're about to say. If you, for some reason, have not played AM... I'm not even going to say for some reason. It's actually quite likely that most of you watching this have not played AM2R. I am imploring you, heavily imploring you, to check this game out. Like, I cannot stress enough. Like, I know it's a fan game. I know it's unofficial. And you might think, like, oh, our scores are weighted in this context. We specifically said at the beginning of this episode, we are treating this like an official game, and even with that caveat, like, yeah, man, this game, it really is. It is an unforgettable experience. Even, I'm not sure if it'll impact you. I will say, when we played AM2R, Metroid was in a much darker place. We were at rock bottom as Metroid fans at that time. Federation Force had just released. We were the game before that. Other M, we had that stench following us for half a decade. Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Dread, those games were a figment of our imagination. Those were not even on our minds at the time. And so this was pretty much all we had to go off of. And having a game like AM2R, meant a lot to us as Metroid fans when it came out. So I don't know if in sense it'll impact a new player that much. I think absolutely the quality of this game is still going to shine through, even regardless, in a time where Metroid, is, relevant again.
Let me jump in and piggyback off that really quickly. I played AM2R for the first time in like 2018 or 2019. So I played it after I played Samus Returns. And I think this game, I'm looking at OmegaMetroid.com and I'm looking at the games banner on the very top, and at least 60% of these games that are up there, AM2R is better than them. So if you like 2D Metroidvanias, if you like 2D Metroid, Google is your friend. Find this game, download it. And that's that.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, everybody. Well, we are going to get out of here. I should let everybody know, we haven't made the official decision yet, but chances are probably pretty good that we're going to be taking next week off. We'll release maybe an older episode or something from the Patreon vault, but just with the holiday Doom schedule, my schedule, we're not quite sure if it's going to quite line up. And you know what? Sometimes a little holiday is good for everybody. So we'll let everybody know, but if there's no like quote unquote new episode next week, that's what's going on. But yeah, we'll keep everybody posted on what that looks like. In the meantime, of course, we've got like a million episodes. I mean, not a million, but we've got like hundreds of episodes in our vault. So if you want to go and revisit some of our past shows, definitely go ahead and do that. And you can do that over on OmegaMetroid.com. And not only can you listen to all the past podcast episodes, but you can check out all of our walkthroughs, our guides, our news, our maps, our editorials, thought pieces, tons and tons and tons of goodies for you if you are a Metroid fan over on OmegaMetroid.com. And by the way, check out our YouTube page as well, where you can watch these podcasts in video form if you want to see our smiling faces as we do this. And sometimes you even get cameos from Link, Zora. We didn't see a cameo from Howdy today.
Yeah, my door's closed, so yeah, he didn't enter the room. But yeah, you definitely heard him. You'll be able to hear him audio, video, regardless. So
that's we'll work on getting Howdy on the show. We'll talk to his agent to see if we can book an appearance here. But yes, of course. So go and subscribe over on YouTube. Doom does a lot of really great work for us over on there. And go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, recommend, rate, review, all that good stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them where they can get their Metroid fix every Wednesday. And if you really want to take it up to the next level, patreon.com/spnet is where you can get bonus episodes. As we mentioned, the Great Metroid Area Ranking is almost complete. We have only a couple of months left before we will have officially ranked every single area in the Metroid series. And maybe we'll bring it back when Metroid Prime 4 comes out. We'll see. We'll have to revisit it. But that is going to do it for us this week, my friends. Everybody enjoy your long weekend, and we will see you back here next time. Take care.